It was late at night, maybe 2 or 3 a.m. 17-year-old Maya could not sleep. She tossed and turned in her bed. The moon was shining brightly through her window. It illuminated her pale face and made the shadows on the wall dance around the room. Outside, the wind was howling like a hungry wolf, shaking the house like an earthquake. But it wasn't the storm that kept Maya awake. It was a nightmare she had been having for weeks now. In these dreams, she would always be running from something horrible that wanted to devour her. The faceless creature would be close behind her, its hot, fetid breath on her neck. She could feel its sharp claws raking up her spine, digging into her flesh. Every time she turned to look at it, she saw only a horrifying mess of limbs and teeth. Then it would lunge at her, and the dream would abruptly end. When she woke up, she would find herself drenched in cold sweat, her heart hammering against her ribs. But after a few minutes, the terror would pass, and she could go back to sleep with relative peace of mind. Until last night, the nightmare returned. But this time, something was different. This time, she felt something touch her leg. At first, she thought it was just a cat. Their little paws were always all over her at night. But then she realized that she was lying in a pool of blood, her own blood. And the thing that had touched her leg was a hand, a rotting, bloody hand. She screamed so hard she woke herself up. Now sitting in her bed, her breathing was heavy and fast. The storm outside had stopped, and the only sound filling her ears was her heartbeat. As the seconds ticked by, she became aware of a faint scratching noise coming from the other side of her window. It sounded like someone was trying to claw their way inside. Maya stared at the window, her eyes wide with fear. As the scratching continued unabated, she started to panic. She didn't want to go back to sleep and have that nightmare again. But sleep was inevitable, and soon she was fast asleep again. This time, the dream was even more realistic than before. She could smell the damp earth and decaying flesh. She could hear the moans of the undead. But what terrified her the most was that she could see them now. Not just the creature that pursued her, but other things, other horrors. She saw emaciated bodies with pestilent sores and missing limbs dragging themselves along the ground. They shuffled closer and closer, their empty sockets staring straight at her. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out of her mouth. Then she saw it, the thing from her nightmares. It was almost upon her now. She could see its putrid green skin and matted fur. Its claws were dripping with blood and saliva. It snarled at her, revealing a set of gnashing teeth. Then it pounced. She awoke with a gasp. Her heart was pounding, and her entire body was soaked with sweat. She looked around her room in a panic. Everything seemed normal. Then she noticed the window. It was wide open. The glass panes were shattered, and shards lay on the floor at her feet. A cold wind was blowing in, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something else, something sickly sweet and metallic. As she cautiously approached the window, she saw a figure standing on the lawn. It was tall and thin, with long, spindly arms and legs. Its back was hunched, and its head was bent. It was shuffling towards the house. That nightmare, whatever it was real. When the thing reached her front door, it knocked on it with a rotting hand. Maya watched in horror as the figure continued knocking. At first, she couldn't bring herself to move, but eventually she got up and ran to the back of the house. She had to get away. She had to hide. She ran through the dark, narrow corridors, her bare feet making no sound on the wooden floor. She found a door at the end of the hall and pushed it open. It was a linen closet. She squeezed herself inside, then closed the door. Panting heavily, she leaned against the cool wood, trying to calm herself down. Eventually, the sound of heavy footsteps faded away, and she was left in total darkness. As the first rays of sunlight pierced through the curtains, she opened the door and stepped out. To her horror, she found herself in a nightmare world. The sky was filled with smoke and ash. Buildings were either burnt to the ground or completely destroyed. Cars lay abandoned on the streets, some of them crushed and mangled. The air hung heavy with the stench of decay. There was not a single soul to be seen anywhere. She wandered aimlessly through the apocalyptic landscape until she came across a supermarket. Maybe she could find food or water. The windows of the store were smashed, and the doors were hanging off their hinges. She pushed one of the doors open and entered. The interior of the store was a mess. Food was scattered all over the floor, having been dragged out by whoever had been here before her. There wasn't anything left in the refrigerators. Nothing but empty shelves. She was about to give up hope when she spotted something. It was a bottle of water in the middle of the aisle. Cautiously, she walked towards it. Her throat was parched, and she desperately needed some water. As she reached out for the bottle, she heard a voice. Well, what do we have here? Someone who survived the purge. The voice dripped with malice. She whirled around, her eyes darting frantically around the store, trying to locate the source of the voice. Who's there? She called out. A tall, gaunt man emerged from behind a shelf. His clothes were torn and dirty, and his hair and beard were matted and unkempt. In his right hand, he held a rusty knife. What do you want? She asked, her voice trembling. The man grinned, revealing a set of yellowed teeth. I want you. He took a step towards her. She backed away, her heart pounding. Don't come any closer, she said, though her voice betrayed her. He kept advancing, and she soon found herself cornered. With nowhere else to go, she started to scream, hoping to attract anyone who might be in the vicinity. But no one came. There was no one to help her. The man lunged at her, his eyes gleaming with a predatory light. She closed her eyes and waited for the inevitable, but the attack never came. When she opened her eyes again, she saw that the man had collapsed. A crimson stain was spreading rapidly across his chest, staining his filthy clothes a deeper shade of red. He looked down at the wound, his eyes wide with surprise. Then he crumpled to the ground and lay still. She cautiously approached him. Are you dead? She whispered. No response. She checked for a pulse, then turned away. She didn't want to see it, but she had to know. Turning back, she examined the wound. It was deep, and the man's chest was caved in. There was no saving him. Then she saw something strange. The wound on his chest was shaped like a handprint. The same handprint she had seen in her nightmare. Her nightmare world was bleeding into reality. First, the man's wound was a handprint. Could what she saw in her dreams be happening to other people too? As she walked through the deserted city, she saw mutilated bodies lying on the sidewalk, their flesh torn apart as if they had been attacked by some kind of wild animal. But the sight that truly shocked her was that of a group of people, men, women, and children, all of them kneeling on the ground with their hands and feet bound. They were alive, but barely. Their eyes were blank and soulless, their skin pallid and corpse-like. She knew what was happening. These people were zombies. And she knew because she had seen it in her dreams. In her dreams, she was always running from them. And now she understood why. She was running for her life. Because in this nightmare world, there was no escape.